spoke to us at the time, thank you for coming back. You know, we're always good with story writing. So please, if I don't mention your name or I don't recognize you there, just an oversight of the time. So you have to handle the excellence. Let me expand on the protocol and before then, let me sincerely join my senior colleague here and my boss to share our concern of actually to appreciate for making it very good. A very good morning, Your Excellencies. Let me begin by thanking God Almighty for the day and for you for honoring this invitation to this history-making event, which was earlier scheduled to take place on the 19th of June, only to be moved to this day due to the clash of this conference with a national and ECOWAS engagement involving His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Metamatuga, and several key participants. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to give a little background on how this conference came about. It started in early February. Let me just share with us how it came about. Early February, my car had a very terrible issue, which led me to selling it. And as at that time, the proceeds was used to resolve pressing family needs. Because apart from the caregiver issue, I also have some pressing family needs then. While the little portion of the amount was set aside for my daily transportation to office. Barely 4 days of being without a car after over 20 years of owning one, an idea dropped on my mind in the early hours of morning. I personally down this. At about 10:30 a.m. same day, I called the SA media to the minister to know if he was on seat. He said he was, so I jumped into a commercial vehicle popularly known as Along in Abuja, and other part of this country is known as Kabu Kabu, to the Minister of Foreign Affairs to see him. As soon as we met, I showed him the idea I scribbled down on my phone notebook. While looking at what I showed him, I saw the look of how do you intend to get it done, as well as I trust you can do it, assurances in his eyes. He asked me to transfer what I jotted down to him for his input, which he graciously did and sent back to me. The spokesperson of the ministry was also consulted immediately. After leaving the SAS office, he gave his nod to the idea with a smile. And with that look of, I know you can do it, I immediately posted it on our ESCO platform, after which a conference committee was inaugurated for the task ahead. Being a leader and a civilian general that loves leading his members from the front, I instantly took the bull by the horn and hit the ground running by doing a letter of notification to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who is also Peter's grandfather, another letter to the Minister of State, and the third one to the Permanent Secretary, who is a father figure to the association, seeking for approval of the idea and this magnificent edifice. The reality of that idea dawned on me when the letters to the Minister and that of the Permanent Secretary were approved. But I decided not to lose focus, but kept my sight fixated on the goals ahead. I had local, the scorching sun and torrential rainfall of Abuja in some instances was not friendly, and the risk of jumping from one commercial vehicle to another were all discouraging factors, but the drive with me was greater. Letters were done to relevant stakeholders, defiling the scorching sun and the unfriendly weather due to paucity of funds. I trekked in most instances to get it delivered to the critical stakeholders joined by the very few members that believe in the vision. We paid courtesy visits to embassies and some line agencies in order to get their buy-in. I did follow up to ensure that the course is not derailed. The Director of Protocol, Ambassador Wahab Akonde, and his staff also assisted in ensuring that our letters got to the embassies without hitches. Fast forward to this morning. After getting set for this very special conference, I hoped on motorcycle, that is the commercial motorcycle that usually picks me to my bus stop. In the commercial vehicle I was boarded, I was not certain of what to expect, despite getting prior assurances from some ambassadors and critical stakeholders of being available for today's conference. But walking into the auditorium, ladies and gentlemen, despite me looking not too big in size, I feel very tall, huge, and proud for not giving up on that idea of organizing an international conference that will avail stakeholders opportunity to contribute their quota in addressing global security challenges despite the numerous bottlenecks encountered in the course of this journey. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that idea scribbled down on my phone's notebook is what brought us here today. I first thank the Minister, Permanent Secretary, Directors, staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Conference Committee, and members of the Diplomatic Correspondence Association of Nigerian-African that believed in this vision, as well as you, our key stakeholders, for believing and trusting in DICAN to put up this high-quality international conference that is in line with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration's drive for a secure nation, region, the world, despite initial hitches that is highly regrettable. It will interest you to know that Diplomatic Correspondence Association of Nigeria, DICAN, is the first journalist peace association globally to bring together the world in one room to brainstorm on how to address global security challenges in the era of misinformation, disinformation, misperception, and misconception, in line with Nigeria's 4Ds foreign policy direction, as anchored by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, and his team to enhance the nation's global image, as well as place Nigeria at par with other great countries in the Committee of Nations. Apart from its mandate of holding governments and individuals accountable, DICAN also sets agenda for governments as a frontline, credible and responsible body of journalists covering the diplomatic piece. Your Excellencies, as part of this conference, selected personalities and entities will be recognized and awarded for their excellence, outstanding contribution towards ensuring global peace, security, and stability. Diplomatic Correspondence Association of Nigeria, DICAN, did not in any way compromise or lower the global standards and criteria for awarding excellence. To this end, the awardees were carefully selected and screened based on merit across sectors. The award presentation is a wake-up call to all, including institutions, to redouble their efforts in every aspect of life as DICAN takes stock, observes, and awards merit. Your Excellencies, may I seize this opportunity to invite you to a 2-day DICAN Diplomatic Trade Investment Business Networking Conference and Exhibition, scheduled for October 2020, that is October 28 to 29, this year as part of our end of year program in 2025. The venue for the conference and exhibition will be communicated to you in due course after all modalities are put in place by the Conference and Exhibition Committee. While soliciting participation and sponsorship by your business community, we call for your full involvement in the conference, especially in the exhibition that is aimed at creating opportunities for you to pick a stand to showcase your country's investment and tourism potentials, products, and services at the two-day exhibition, as well as network with participants to enhance mutual business and trade ties among stakeholders. Your support will go a long way to ensure that this positive and forward-thinking project succeeds, because we cannot do it alone. Your Excellencies, let me assure you that under my leadership as the chairman of DICAN and a licensed chartered project manager by the Institute of Project Managers of Nigeria, CIPMN, a certified member of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, NUJ, and a Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, NIPR. The association will not relent in its efforts to continually organize programs that will complement efforts in improving the policies and standards of living in Nigeria, Africa, and the world, as well as boosting the nation's partnership and investment drive through responsible image-enhancing diplomatic reportage. Again, we call for your assistance in bringing in relevant stakeholders from the diplomatic business community, government and private sector to enhance the quality of the two-day October DICAN conference and exhibition. The request shall be brought to you formally after this conference, your Excellencies and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Before I take my seat, I humbly request that you make the doors of your embassy and offices accessible to us by involving DICAN in your programs, knowledge and non-classified information sharing, exchanging, training and retraining both in Nigeria and your own countries. We are open and ready for more enhanced partnership and collaboration. I'm proud, Your Excellency, to reiterate that DICAN is qualified to be included in the Guinness Book of World Records as the first journalist association globally to bring the world together in order to make the world a better and safer place to live. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I request that we rise up and observe a minute silence in honor of late Nigeria's former president, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, and all those that lost their lives globally in security.
Lack of trust or insufficient, most especially, for example, here we are in this part of the world. Our democracy is fragile in Nigeria, for example. So there is tendency for countries like Nigeria to be faced with a lot of disinformation. Most right now, West Africa and South are facing.
Known as Along in Abuja, and other part of this country is known as Kabuka, got to the embassies without reaching. Governments as a front to case your country's investment from the diplomatic business community. Your Excellencies,
Excellencies, ladies,
May their souls rest. Thank you so very much as you enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you so very much, and may God bless Nigeria.
and in particular, the chair of DICAN.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a distinguished personality whose work is instrumental in shaping the future of Nigeria's diplomatic cause through reforms and innovation, a visionary leader, and a key figure in our nation's foreign service transformation. We are honored to serve with us. Please join me as I welcome the Director, Foreign Service, Reform and Innovation at the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Balaji Akiyani, for his goodwill message.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You won't know how long 1 minute can be until it is in silence for those who are past. It looked like the last 1 minute was like 10 minutes or 1 hour. I was almost losing my breath. But thank you so much for that honor that you have done to our leader. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, members of the diplomatic corps, esteemed colleagues, distinguished members of Deacon, ladies and gentlemen, and in particular the chair of Deacon. An association with a very proud record of professionalism, integrity, and patriotic service to Nigeria diplomatic community. As Director of the Foreign Service Reforms and Innovation Department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and as someone who had the privilege of a brief but enriching stint with the media, including serving as the ministry's spokesman, under whose tenure Deacon was launched. I deeply appreciate the critical role of the media play in shaping narratives, promoting transparency, and supporting diplomacy. Today's conference theme speaks directly to the present challenge of our time: how diplomacy, intelligence, and media can serve as anchors of truth and stability. In an age marked by global insecurity, misinformation, and strategic distortion, Nigeria as a regional power and a leader in the continent is strategically positioned to influence regional and global affairs. Our 4D foreign policy strategy consists democracy, development, demography, and diaspora. Represents a very comprehensive approach to assert Nigerians' value, protect our interests, and project our leadership. However, the success of this strategy depends not only on diplomats and policymakers, but also on the media's capacity to inform, clarify, and connect with the public and the world with accuracy and responsibility. It is in this context that I urge Deacon and all its members to continue to uphold the highest standard of journalistic integrity. In this digital age, where information is easily manipulated and weaponized, the diligence and discernment of diplomatic correspondence becomes even more vital. Your Excellencies, this work is not just to report, but to verify, to contextualize, and to uphold truth in the face of disinformation. As you know, the day the blind man first sees the first thing he throws away is the stick that has helped him all his life. I became the first victim of members of Tikan as spokesperson. Out of my love and diligence for past goodness, I survived it. Therefore, I know the impact of verifying information. I also wish to pay tribute to the past achievements of Tikan. You have, over the years, served as a critical bridge between the ministry, the diplomatic corps, and the Nigerian public. Your contribution to deepening public understanding of foreign policy issues, Nigeria's global engagement, and regional dynamics cannot be understated. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, therefore, through our department, is committed to strengthening collaboration with the diplomatic corps, media institutions, and professional bodies like Tikan. We believe that together, through reforms, innovation, and informed communication, we can build a more resilient and respected Nigerian foreign service. In closing, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage Tikan members to remain steadfast in their mission, clarify before reporting, seek context beyond headlines, and always remain guided by the national interests and the values of integrity and professionalism. May this conference yield fruitful outcomes that will strengthen our collective commitment to a stable, secure, and well-informed global community. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Another round of applause for him, please. It is a great honor that I introduce to you a man who stands at the helm of Nigeria's armed forces, a symbol of courage, discipline, and strategic leadership. As the Chief of Defense Staff of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he bears the immense responsibility of coordinating our nation's military operations and safeguarding our sovereignty and national security. Please join me as I warmly welcome the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, who is represented by Rear Admiral A.M. Haruna Surabi.
Your Excellencies, gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I am Rear Admiral A.M. Haruna, the Director of Plans at the Defense Headquarters. I'm here this morning to present the Chief of Defense Staff, General C.J. Musa, OFR, who is unavoidably absent due to service exigencies. On behalf of the Chief of Defense Staff, I would like to extend warm greetings to all distinguished guests, speakers, and participants at this esteemed diplomatic and security correspondent conference. I would also like to thank the organizers of the conference for extending the invitation to the Chief of Defense Staff to be part of this lovely gathering. We appreciate your crucial role in shaping public discourse and promoting understanding of matters of national security and diplomacy. Your dedication to accurate and responsible reporting is invaluable in fostering a well-informed citizenry and supporting our collective efforts to ensure peace and stability in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to fruitful engagement while exploring ways to strengthen our collective efforts in promoting national interest and global security. Once again, thank you and God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to recognize a distinguished Nigerian lawmaker, a respected leader whose legislative contribution has helped shape national discourse and development. He is a minority leader of the ninth House of Representatives who has served rhetorically, representing the good people of Anyocha, Oshili, sorry if I got it wrong, Federal Constituency of Delta State. He brought passion, experience, and vision to public service. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Right Honorable Indeed Godwin Odebelu to give you the message. He is the man who will always know how to win debate and to smile, as you can see he's smiling. Please, Right Honorable, you're welcome.
Your Excellencies, invited guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, for want of time, please let me profusely adopt the already existing protocol. Thank you so much. Let me clearly say that I am delighted to bring you goodwill on the occasion of Diplomatic Security International Conference 2025 organized by the Diplomatic Correspondents Association of Nigeria. I congratulate the leadership and members of DICAM for bringing, by the way, you read my citation very well, so thank you so much. I congratulate the leadership and members of DICAM for bringing together national and international stakeholders to this brainstorming session and to proffer practical solutions to the issues of security and economic development. The theme of the conference, which has of course been mentioned, Nigeria 4D's foreign policy strategy amidst global security challenges, strategic misconception and the age of disinformation, the role of diplomacy, intelligence and media in shaping national and global stability, is apt given the urgent need to strengthen collaborations on security and economy. It is also germane to Nigeria in view of the imperative of garnering national and international support towards the success of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the GCFR, Tinubu's 4D's foreign policy strategy. Nigeria's 4D's foreign policy strategy, which emphasizes on democracy, development, demography, and diaspora, underscores President Tinubu's commitment towards returning Nigeria to her leading role in Africa and among the Community of Nations by deepening our democracy through bolstering democratic institutions and practice, thereby stimulating development and economic growth through infrastructural development and foreign direct investments, deploying efficient demographic tools to successfully manage our large population and diversities, while optimizing capacity-based engagement with Nigerians and the diaspora for national economic development. Against this backdrop, is the compelling demand for operational synergy among governments, relevant national and transnational agencies, the media, and the diplomatic community towards the spirit, letters, and intent of the 4Ds. This is especially in the areas of intelligence and knowledge sharing, financial aid, and equipment support in deepening democratic practice, tackling national and transborder criminal activities, checking illicit financial flows, terrorism, smuggling, trafficking in arms and drugs, and ensuring effective public enlightenment for national safety, stability, and development. This is why I must again salute this noble and insightful initiative by DCAN. DCAN has again demonstrated the age-long patriotism and dedication of Nigerian media practitioners towards nation building, while I encourage DCAN as a critical stakeholders to keep the flag flying, especially in battling disinformation through effective and timely dissemination of accurate information. I urge the authorities to give this body all the necessary support it needs to effectively perform its duties. On this note, I wish DCAN, the keynote speakers, the special guests, and all participants, including me, to this conference, the best being positive that this forum will stimulate robust discourses that will further shape actions for national and global stability. Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't bore you.
Screen.
So up next we have it is my distinct honor to introduce a trailblazing public servant, a renowned broadcaster and a tireless advocate of welfare and engagement. She has served Nigeria with distinction in National Assembly, and today she continues to champion the cause of our global citizens as chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. Please join me in welcoming the ever-dynamic and highly respected Right Honorable Abike Daberi Arewa, but she is being represented by the Director, Media and Public Relations Protocol, NIPCO. He is no other person than Abdulrahman Balogo. I appreciate him as he comes forward.
Your Excellencies, representative of CGS, representative of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to each and every one of us. First, I want to make a minor correction. My principal name is Honorable Abike Dabiri Arewa, not A. Yeah, thank you. She has sent a good message through me. Today, the member House of Representative Committee of diaspora. They are an oversized function, and as a result, she's receiving them, and that is why she has sent myself and my colleague there, Mrs. Violet Nwosu, to come and represent at this wonderful conference. The message is the same. First, I want to adopt the message by His Excellency Ambassador Bolaji. I know him to be Akinremi, but I saw here he said Akinyemi. I don't know whether he has changed his name. All the people said Akinyemi, so but I know him to be Akinremi. So you will tell us whether he has changed his name. You have not. Okay. So it's an error. Okay. Okay. So I'm adopting all what he has said as in his goodwill message. Again, I want to adopt the message of my very good Honorable Ndudi Elumelu Ndudi. I'm not in I was hearing another version of Ndudi here too. It's Honorable Ndudi Elumelu. Very powerful honorable, a 3-time member of the House of Representatives. Please, a lot of applause for honorable. I'm equally adopting his own goodwill message too, so that my own will be so short. My addition that I just want to chip in is just to discuss with my colleagues the aspect of reportage, aspect of which is one of the team that is disinformation, correcting disinformation. You know, there was a time somebody, I don't know whether it's one of our members, just put up a story here that the ministry has appointed so number of ambassadors. You know, and people went to town sharing names and all the rest, and there was nothing like that. I know it's not our member. Such a thing, you should discourage it, and that's the essence of NICAN having a group like this, professional body. People who understand the language at a particular ethnic. So I want to commend the chairman of NICAN and others for ensuring that there is accurate reportage. Secondly, you know, the 4th day of Mr. President, which, if I'm not going to bore you by repeating it, democracy, development, demography, and diaspora. The last one is the one we are anchoring, the diaspora. It's another misconceived word that people don't really know what we do. Who is a diaspora? And what does it entail? I mean, cases of trafficking, people will bring it to diaspora. That just yesterday, some journalists are quoting me. They're taking some people to Ghana to this. What are you doing about it? I said, this is a case of human trafficking. There is an agency dealing with human trafficking. Husband and wife will be fighting in the UK. They will bring it to us that we should come and settle this matter. A student, the parent will send him to go and study in the UK, and is unable to pay school fees. Then it's our issue. You know, so many other things. It's like Nigeria, we have not really understand what it means to be a diaspora. And we have a policy. There's a national diaspora policy, which I'm encouraging all of us, it's online, to download it and study what national diaspora policy entails, so that we build it into the concept of the policy of Mr. President's foreign policy objective. Of course, lastly, before I drop the mic, I just want to speak on foreign policy. Foreign policy, which I wrote here, is the strategic goal of a country regarding to other states. Strategic goal. What do you intend to achieve? What is your opinion? What is your stand on any issue that has to do with foreign policy. And this, it entails, the policy can also include various tools such as diplomacy, sanctions, propaganda, negotiation, containment, and collective security, as well as defense and military force. And that's how our military come into force here. So on that, I want to wish all of us a very fruitful deliberation as we discuss about the issue of security, intelligence, orientation, information, and other aspects that has to do with it. So once again, I greet each and every one of us, and thank you for listening.
He just made lots of corrections, especially in the please a round of applause for him again. So up next on our good news message, join me in welcoming a distinguished officer, a gentleman, a man whose journey through the rank of the Nigerian police force reflects dedication, intelligence, and unwavering commitment to law and order. He currently leads over 300,000 officers across the country with a vision for a smarter and more responsive and community-driven police force. It's my honor to invite to the podium the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Adeolu Ebetuku, PhD, who is represented by DSP Muhammad Kabiru Abdullahi, DCP Muhammad Kabiru Abdullahi.
Your Excellencies, members of the High Table, the representative of the CTS, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I stand here to represent the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Adeolu, PhD, on this occasion organized by DICA. The Nigerian police, as you are aware, were solely concerned with internal security. And internal security has a very devastating nature of relationship with information and disinformation. If there is any disinformation of happenings in other countries, because the world has become a global village, they may have a devastating impact on our internal security. Credible journalism is very important at this crucial stage in our life, globally and internally in our own country. What is happening in other countries, when reported wrongly and without proper following the principles and ethics of credible journalism, may affect Nigerian security, as we are entangled with security problems across the whole country. In northern Nigeria, we are having problem of banditry and kidnapping, and also in the north central. In the south and southwestern Nigeria, we have problem of gunmen, and in the northeast, we have problem of insurgency. So if there is any connection between what is happening in Nigeria and our neighboring countries or other countries in the world, certainly it may have a devastating impact. You will see that something happened in thousands of miles in other countries when people decided to send misinformation, fake information. People may likely react in what is happening elsewhere. So the importance of credible information is very, very crucial at this stage of our life. At this juncture, on behalf of the Inspector General of Police, I wish all the participants, members of the High Table, and those invited, and people who are invited as a resource person, a good and successful deliberation throughout this period. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the representative of the Inspector General of Police. A round of applause once more for him.
all ambassadors that are here in this hall, in no particular order, all heads of mission, we really appreciate your sacrifice, the time that you've created to come here to support DICA. And also representatives of all embassies and international organizations, we appreciate your presence. So a round of applause for Mr. We also want to recognize the chairperson of Nigerian Union of Journalists, FCT chapter, Comrade Grace Ike, that is represented by Princess Joy Adam. You're welcome, ma'am. We also want to recognize the representative of the Director General, Nigeria Technical Aid Corps, Ambassador John Shagaya and Ambassador S.D. Mohammed. We appreciate your presence here. We also want to recognize the Director General of Institute of Peace and Conflict Resolution. We appreciate the representative that is here with us in this hall. Also want to recognize Engineer Frank Ezra Hamawa, the CEO Hamawa Engineering Nigeria Limited. You're welcome and thanks so much for coming to. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are still receiving goodwill messages, so may I respectfully invite the last but certainly not the least, Mr. Herring Ifai Mbadiwe, the Registrar General, Chartered Institute of Project Managers of Nigeria, for his goodwill message. A round of applause for him.
The Honorable Minister, ably represented, Your Excellencies, may I stand on existing protocol? My name is Henry Ifeanyi Mbadiwe, and I'm the Registrar General and Chief Executive Officer of the Chartered Institute of Project Managers of Nigeria, a regulatory body sitting under the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, designed to regulate project management practices in Nigeria. In my early career, one of the first, the very first job I got was with the British Broadcasting Corporation, and that was in Manchester, in the UK. I saw how this particular news outlet took very seriously the type or the kind of information they put out. As my career progressed, I had the opportunity to also work with Sky in the UK, delivering various projects. And during that time, I also experienced firsthand the detail that was being put into communication and what goes out there into the world. One might ask, what does project management have to do with all of this? Development in any nation has a lot to do with the strength of its human capital. Trees, tractors, houses, cars do not develop a nation. People develop a nation. And in every sector of the economy, including diplomatic one, there are projects that are being delivered for the benefit of these countries and for the nation. The skills you acquire, the project management skills in defining your goals and objectives, understanding and defining your stakeholders, putting the round pegs in the round hole in terms of resources, managing risks, having a plan, understanding your communication strategy, managing knowledge, and development diplomacy all come into play
when you are thinking of building or creating a new initiative. Now, when I listened to the chairman of DECAN on how he kicked off or started this conference planning, I remember the research that said grit is one of grit, G-R-I-T, is one of the principal, key, and most important traits that any individual who wishes to succeed must have. I saw grit in the steps that he took. I saw consistency in the steps that he took. And I'm looking around today and I can see an already successful conference. There is a very popular saying, the phrase, the pen is mightier than the sword. This particular proverb emphasizes the power of words and communication over violence. It suggests that writing and ideas can be more influential and effective in bringing about change than physical force or warfare. The pen is mightier than the sword. But when I sit back to think about that, are we beginning to use the pen as a sword in Nigeria and in the world today? This conference is important because we need to remind ourselves that the pen is mightier than the sword. We need to remind ourselves that in no circumstance must the pen be used as a sword. We need to remind ourselves that we pay critical attention around what we say or do. When I was appointed in this position, my very first experience working in Nigeria, I experienced how the pen was used against me. Things were written, some things were published, unverified. Why? With the sole purpose of getting this man out of his seat. So I began to wonder, did I just leave the UK to Nigeria to serve my country, but to suffer all of this? I began to wonder why a news outlet would publish something that was unverified, untrue, unresearched, and that particular article will go round. And then by the time they realize that it was an error, not even step up to acknowledge their mistakes. Gentlemen and ladies, the pen should be mightier than the sword, and the pen should not, in any case, be used as a sword. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. A round of applause once more for the registrar. Registrar General, Chartered Institute of Project Managers of Nigeria. I think I'll try to be a member. If registration is not very expensive. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are making progress, and we need to hear from the keynote speaker for today, and it's no other person than my boss, the Chief Diplomat of Tafawa Balewa House, His Excellency Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuga, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, who is ably represented for this very important occasion by the Special Assistant on Media, Communication and Strategy, Mr. Akasim Habu Kadri, for the keynote address. Minister of Dignity.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps, and friends of Nigeria that we do not take for granted. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for staying, listening patiently all the while. The media, members of the academia here, and civil society, good morning to you all. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked to step into very big giant shoes that are obviously very oversized for me this morning. I'm here to represent the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuga OON, who is attending to matters of state. He's at this moment on his way en route to Morocco for a very important engagement. That is why he is absent this morning. These are his words. They're in no mind my speech. Thank you. It is a profound honor to address you today on a subject that sits at the intersection of foreign policy, security, strategic communication, and our collective global future. Permit me to begin by reaffirming Nigeria's unwavering commitment to peace, multilateral cooperation, and principled diplomacy. Those values anchor our foreign policy and guide our engagement on the international stage. In contextual realities, we gather at a time of growing geopolitical volatility. The international system is contending with new and evolving threats, state and non-state conflicts, the weaponization of disinformation, resurgent protectionism, technological disruptions, and a widening trust deficit between relations and within societies. Nigeria is not immune to these trends as Africa's most populous country and its largest economy. Nigeria occupies a pivotal place in regional and global affairs. It is our duty to attend to strategic clarity and principled leadership. The 4Ds and Nigeria's foreign policy compass. In response to these realities, Nigeria has adopted the 4Ds foreign policy strategy: democracy, development, demography, and diaspora. Each D reflects both a national imperative and a global responsibility. Democracy. As a post-colonial, multi-ethnic state, Nigeria's embrace of democratic norms and the rule of law is not just internal policy, it is a signal of stability and credibility in international engagements. Development. Our foreign policy must be a tool for economic transformation through strategic partnerships, trade diplomacy, and sustainable development cooperation. We seek growth to complete the lives of Nigerians all around. Demography. With a youth-dominated population, Nigeria's demographic profile is both a strength and a challenge. We're committed to converting our human capital into diplomatic capital championing youth inclusion in global governance. Diaspora. Our global Nigerian community is an invaluable asset. We are institutionalizing their involvement in policy investment, cultural diplomacy, and building efforts across the globe. Global security challenges and strategic misconceptions. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the more fundamental threats facing diplomacy today is the rise of strategic misperceptions, fueled not by misunderstanding alone, but by orchestrated disinformation, deep fake technologies, and hostile narratives. Nigeria has experienced the first hand from manipulated media in conflict zones to false reporting on our democratic processes and military operations. Such distortions erode trust, escalate tensions, and hinder international cooperation. The antidote for these distortions lies in tripartite alignment. Diplomacy, it remains the most tested instrument of peace and understanding. Our diplomats are frontline actors in countering misperceptions with truth, building alliances, protecting Nigeria's image and interests abroad. 2. Intelligence. Foreign policy must now be data-driven and security-aware. We are deepening coordination between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and intelligence agencies to anticipate threats, assess partners, and engage with foresight. 3. The media. The media. The traditional and digital media shapes perception before policy is understood. That is why Nigeria has adopted a proactive public diplomacy approach, engaging international media platforms and investing in narrative sovereignty. We must move from reactive communication to strategic communication, projecting not only our policies, but also our values, vision, and voice. Call for international collaboration. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen and your excellencies, the challenge we face cannot be tackled in isolation. Nigeria calls for greater international cooperation in tackling disinformation campaigns, support for capacity building in digital diplomacy for developing nations, more inclusive multilateral frameworks that acknowledge demographic diversity, and renewed commitment to Africa's peace architecture, where Nigeria continues to play a leading role through ECOWAS and the African Union.
The workshop has achieved is one is that the way safety issues in the power sector is going, there is need for collaborative effort. So we've been able to bring stakeholders together to interrogate issues around safety, especially stakeholders from non-governmental and private sector operators and associations. You could see that the Licensed Electrical Contractors Association of Nigeria was here represented. The Indigenous Contractors Association of Nigeria was here. Association of Rural Electrification Contractors, they were here. So what we've done here is to review it, and the committee has been set up. Nigeria Electricity Supply Industry Safety Support Committee has been set up, comprising of representatives of these organizations to enable us move forward in engaging with the institutions of state to ensure that safety standards and regulations are not swept under the carpet, especially the angle of funding, because inadequate funding or inadequate utilization of funds is complicating issues in the power sector. It is because of that you see people use substandard materials to work. They use quacks who are not qualified to do the jobs, and that is not proper. Then when you see contract award not following due process, if they abuse procurement processes, you don't expect the jobs to be of quality and standard.
Okay, so aside the issue of in ensuring process safety in this electricity supply, what are other parts of this
Yeah, specifically, we are calling for National Safe Electricity Installation Empowerment Program to be able to empower these electrical technicians who acquired the skill, probably from the roadside or however they acquired it, but they've not gotten the Nigerian Electricity Management Services Agency competency certificate. You may be aware that Section 176N of the Electricity Act 2023 provides that NEMSA should process and issue competency certificate to electrical installers. Installation is very important because fire outbreak, electrocution, vandalism, all occur. You see, when breeze blow now, light will go away. Rain, small rain, light will go, because the networks are not strong. Either they are executed by wax or substandard materials are used. And you see, if you don't train these people, their number is large in this country. There are not less than 88,000 electrical technicians carrying out installations across the Federation. Our vision is that they should be mobilized and be trained by the licensed contractors that are doing the electricity job, so that they can acquire good skill in practice and then be able to get the certification from NEMSA to be able to do this job. The reason is they will create more jobs, they will train more youths, and they will earn income, and that will reduce insecurity. It will empower the people. So I use this opportunity to call on President Bola Tinubu administration to support the Nigerian Safe Electricity Installation Empowerment Program. I call on the National Assembly to dedicate funds in their community project, their constituency projects. Let them dedicate funds to be able to support us, mobilize these youths and these electrical technicians, and equip them with competency certificate, so that they will have less number of quack electrical installers across the Federation. Thank you.
In my view, very elegantly with his 4T diplomacy, a mix of assets and challenges, with democracy as a core value, development as a goal, demography as both a potential dividend and a short-term challenge and burden on public services, and diaspora as a great potential for Nigeria's global influence, as was reminded in the Honorable Minister's speech a minute ago. Now, what about European Union diplomacy? How could we sum it up? And let me try to do this in a few sentences. I would say it's about promoting the model that has made of European integration what is, with all its shortcomings, a tremendous success. A model based on common values, on a priority for the common good and general interest, a model of cooperation, not of rivalry, based on settling divergences of interest through a rule-based legal order and through negotiation, not through threat, arms twisting, or aggression. A model based on equality and respect for all states, while acknowledging that they have different capacities and size. And finally, a model aiming at shared prosperity and sustainable development for all. And our diplomacy is about helping our partners to implement the triple transition that we are trying ourselves to realize, and that the world has to go through if humanity wants to survive and thrive on this planet. Green, digital, and inclusive transition. Green, to change our model of production, consumption, and exchange to make them compatible with what nature can absorb. Digital, to make sure that the tech and the AI revolutions are at the service of all human beings, and not just a few owners of big tech companies. And inclusive, to share our global prosperity, and not let it be confiscated by some happy few. And an important element of this inclusivity is gender equality, and I feel particularly compelled to stress it from its mainly male tribune. Of course, we all have to adapt to a fast-changing world. And for the European Union, these main adaptation challenges are about the need to enhance our competitiveness and innovation capacity, to reinforce strategic autonomy, while coping with budgetary constraints and an aging demography. Ladies and gentlemen, in these challenging times, we need to team up between all nations who believe in this model based on collectivity and cooperation. And this is why years, and in particular over the last few months, the EU has tried to enhance existing partnerships and to broker new ones, from Far Asia to Latin America. Real partnerships among equals, win-win partnerships, not fake deals which are not even implemented and are only aimed at creating dependencies and exploitation. And this is also what we want to do with our African partners. And in November in Angola, we will have a very important EU-AU summit between the European Union and the African Union, the first since February 2022. And for the EU, Nigeria is at the center of the African chessboard and a priority for an enhanced partnership. Our offer to Africa and to the world is called the Global Gateway Investment Strategy. It aims at going beyond the traditional official development assistance and to break with the relationship of donor to beneficiary. It's about articulating with our member states and our development banks, the European Investment Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, within what we call Team Europe. It's about combining different financial instruments and partnering with the private sector to leverage, facilitate, and accelerate investments. Because we know that if we want to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, official development assistance will be very insufficient and needs to be complemented by a lot of private resources. And more than anything, the Global Gateway is about offering sustainable development and respect for the sovereignty of the partner countries, avoiding to fall into a debt trap with an excessive level of costly borrowing. The Global Gateway strategy is being rolled out in Nigeria in sectors like the digital economy, renewable energy, transport, climate-smart agriculture, and health. It is still very much in the making, but projects like OMI-ECO, the future electric maritime transportation system of Lagos, or the 90,000 kilometers of optic fiber that we want to help to roll out in Nigeria, illustrate that it is already a reality. And of course, we don't abandon our traditional support to rule of law and democracy, which Nigeria is also promoting in West Africa through the Regional Partnership for Democracy, or support to human rights and gender equality, or support to education. And actually, they are also part of the Global Gateway strategy. In a nutshell, in this fast-evolving world, the EU wants to be, for Nigeria and Africa, a reliable partner. One you know you can count upon, one that keeps its commitments and stays its course. Because as neighbors, with so many historical and human links, our destinies are intertwined. And this is what makes our partnership so special. But to succeed in this renewed partnership, we need also to win the battle of information. Because we are facing massive strategies of disinformation instigated by rogue players whose only goal is destabilization and creating chaos. The European Union is actively working to combat disinformation and to promote media literacy, with fact-checking playing a crucial role in these efforts. Within its borders, the EU has adopted far-reaching measures to combat disinformation, and outside its borders, it is working with partners, including the media and the civil society, to protect the integrity of the information matrix. Cooperation, awareness raising, and support for fact-checking and media literacy initiatives are key aspects of the EU's multifaceted approach. The European Digital Media Observatory, EDMO, provides a platform for fact-checkers, academics, and other experts to collaborate on understanding and combating disinformation. The Rapid Alert System, ARAS, facilitates information sharing among EU member states and institutions about disinformation threats. The EU versus Disinfo project is a dedicated platform for raising public awareness about information manipulation. In addition, the EU, together with its member states, develops a series of activities in Nigeria. We monitor and analyze disinformation campaigns, particularly those targeting elections or sensitive topics. We promote media literacy initiatives and provide resources for citizens to critically evaluate information. We support fact-checkers and researchers working to debunk disinformation and foster collaboration among them. And we are also building up critical capacity for fact-checking in the media and to help journalists strengthen their resilience to disinformation, information manipulation, and propaganda. And I'm particularly pleased that the next speaker, Mr. Alassane Bala, was one of the beneficiaries of our programs. And of course, we partner with Nigerian authorities and ECOWAS in this fight against disinformation. And in this battle, to provide accurate and reliable news, you, diplomatic correspondents and journalists, have a crucial role to play. So keep up your work and rest assured that you will find in the European Union a constant partner and a source of honest and verified information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We appreciate the EU for the work it's doing in Nigeria, especially when it comes to digital economy, transport, agri-health, and of course for also creating a relationship where we can have a reliable partner in the EU and creating a relationship where it is no longer a donor to beneficiary relationship. We really appreciate you. Moving forward, our next paper presentation is by Hassan Bala. He is the founder of Al-Kalansi, which is a Hausa language-based fact-checking platform. A round of applause for him, please.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, my colleagues, the journalists, and protocol duly observed. Like what the chairman of DPM says, we journalists we are not good at following the protocol, so forgive me for that, please. I was rightly introduced, my name is Hassan Bala. I'm a fact checker and the founder of Al-Kalansi, which is West Africa's fact-checking and media literacy platform, which we are dealing with Sahel and West Africa, where Hausa language is spoken. So we are focusing on local language. And I have just 20 to 25 minutes to give to me, Alicia. We support actually project, but unfortunately, we have issue here, and the facility project is not around, so I'm going to take it through. Sorry about that. I would love to even play some videos for you to see some effects and some example of what we're going to discuss regarding disinformation and feeling. Thank you very much. I'm starting with feeling. A lot of people knows disinformation here, and some don't really know disinformation. Mostly in Nigeria, people believe that when you talk about misinformation, disinformation, the only thing they will tell you is fake news, just fake news. In Hausa, they will just say labaran kaya, that's all. They don't really know that a lot of things beyond just fake news, which is disinformation and feeling, and also misinformation. Disinformation is just like what the IG said, has a lot of effect. It is just false information deliberately spread to mislead people, to manipulate people. Meanwhile, for misinformation, it's just an inaccurate information, past or false information. Like I would say, we will check the chairman of the can by saying the first diplomatic or press corps to organize this kind of event. We can say, okay, let's fact check the chairman and see whether it's inaccurate, this information is inaccurate. That is misinformation, for example, if it is false. That is it. Then for disinformation, it's just intentional. A lot of people. Then I'm going to be well because this is the evolving of disinformation. Disinformation is evolving. What I'm seeing in near future, we are not even going to be talking about disinformation. In this part of the world, here in Nigeria, we are not even conversant with disinformation much, and now it's evolving. It's becoming feeling. Feeling means foreign information manipulation and And there are a lot of definition of FIMI. The EAS, the European External Action Service, has given its definition. The US Department has given its definition. And so there are a lot of definitions to it. But one thing for sure about FIMI is that it is intentional way to manipulate information. It just make people have lack of trust for institutions. Lack of trust for institutions. Most especially, for example, here we are in this part of the world that our democracy is fragile in Nigeria, for example. So there is tendency for countries like Nigeria to be faced with a lot of disinformation. Most of it right now, West Africa and Sahel are facing that. So let me give you an example. Do you remember the raising of Russian flag that happened in northern Nigerian state during protests in 2014? I know a lot of people here can remember that. And do you remember the French troops in Mali presented as they are coming to Maiduguri or Borno State to take on their base, military base offered by Nigerian government. I believe if there is any French embassy representative here, you will remember that very well. And Nigerians also can remember. Someone was arrested for that, I know, for sure. And also, do you remember the resurrection now of the story of Jibrin of Sudan? Led Muhammadu Buhari, they say he died in 2017. The war ruling that time was one Jibrin from Sudan. That is just example of FIMI. There is more to disinformation, this type of disinformation. Yes, you can say, yeah, it is false narrative, it is beyond just passing it. There is motive, there is plan. This is just part of the example. So I'm taking you through. I was just a little bit not happy that there is no projector because there are screenshots, there are a lot of examples you would have been seeing yourself while I'm explaining. I'm sorry about that. Then, let me give you an example of a real life example of this FIMI from my own side. I know that a lot of us will remember when COVID-19 came. I think when the vaccine came out, a lot of people were skeptical, including myself, that to take this vaccine the plan is by the West to reduce our population. I know a lot of people remember that. There's something happened about polio back then, before this, and now issue of COVID, for example. I was skeptical, although I was guided by a senior colleague who is no more. And I can confidently say, if it is true that it is for it to, what they call it, to reduce our population, after taking the 2 shots myself, the first and second one, I later have 2 daughters. So, is it to reduce population? Those are the realities. You know, it is just to accuse the West of planning to do this, to do that, instead of all this. It is actually a bigger issue when you see information. The Chartered Institute has mentioned something. I'm coming to that. So, FIMI is always coordinated. I'm coming to the issue that you realize how coordinated it is. I'm sure you have seen several videos about Burkina Faso leader, which is well coordinated. You see it here, millions of views. You see it in YouTube. You see it in TikTok. You know, different people discussing it, saying something. It is well coordinated, and the target is not really Burkina Faso, for example. I'm coming to that later. Thank you very much. Then it is done, for example, the definition of FIMI by EAS. The European Actions mentioned 2 keywords. I'll just explain the keyword. They mention coordinated, they mention intentional. It is intentional. They mention manipulative information activities. And also by foreign states, non-state actors, or their proxies. In Nigeria, for example, there are a lot of proxies for these FIMI actors. There are many. The influencers, the users of so many things, and also some other channels, Telegram and everything. They are well coordinated, and the target is our fragile democracy. That is the target. What happened in Kano and so many other northern states where the Russian flag was raised, the target was to what? To be pro-military, to instigate the youth to be pro-military so that the military would take over. When the military take over, automatically you know what is happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, then we definitely become friends or allies to another nation. Then there is Primi versus the traditional disinformation. For example, during Ebola, I know a lot of people here in Nigeria bath with salt, right? You bath with salt, right? And in the morning, they just started making calls that if you want to protect yourself from Ebola, you have to bath with the salt and even drink the salt. It was too terrible. That's just normal disinformation at that time. But the issue of COVID was a family, because it was to blame some people trying to, to have lack of trust for some particular set of countries. And the protests were well coordinated, and they did very well in manipulating the minds of many people. Even myself, I was nearly manipulated. And then they actually use deepfakes, just like I'm coming to the Burkina Faso issue. Most of those videos where the Burkina Faso leader was speaking Queen's English, deepfakes, influencers, a lot of influencers that been bought with just stipend or huge amount of money in this part of the world. Then messaging apps like Telegram, then cultural terrorism. The reason why French is having issue mostly with the northern Nigerian people is because northern Nigeria have marital, cultural, religious relationship, deep relationship with Niger, and the most of like Chad, Burkina Faso and Mali because of language, Hausa language. So if there is information coming from that, it automatically reach the people in northern Nigeria via the language. So because of that, a lot of people will think, the Nigerian people don't like French. That automatically French is our enemy, because we are more close to the Nigerian people, we are more close to Burkina Faso or Mali, and so on and so forth. This is the thing that is going on. And those that are using this information as weapon, because PIMI is a weapon to throw. So they are using it, they understand this, then they are using the language, they are using religious sentiment, and so many other things. Unfortunately, here in Nigeria, we are so divided. I think Nigeria is actually a good market, sorry to say it, for FIMI, because of so many guns. And the FIMI actors, they are using guns. And that was what happened in most of these West African countries that are now currently under military rule. Then why it matters? They targeted low literacy or information networks. This part of the world, most especially Nigeria or the West Africa and Sahel, that is low literacy, both digital and media literacy. So because of that, they are using that to pass the information, but be it their local sayings, local tea joints, table mesha, sorry, I'm using Hausa language. Or in part of Nigeria, they say beer parlor. They are using that to pass their information. And they are using some people to tell them that I'm telling you this privileged information. They will whisper to them. Then the person will now feel like, I got this privileged information. Before you know, he passes it. I'll give you an example of what happened when President Tinubu visited France, and they signed the mineral resources something. One imam just went to sermon and said that President Tinubu has given France all the northern Nigerian mineral resources for them to take. Free! And a lot of people believe it. If you see how people watch it, the comment was so massive. We did the fact check at Al-Galanchi. We did the fact check and everything because it's in Hausa language, so anything in Hausa language we do our own part. So those are the things. You know, people will now use all those things. And why? Because of the Niger issue. All is because of Niger issue. So those are the things. So AI generated things, all those things, they are using it very, very well. The filming in West Africa, that is why I'm going to the Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso now. The Burkina Faso now, they are saying he did this, he did that. Meanwhile, almost majority of the videos are deepfakes. I don't want to say all so that I will not be, I'm fighting misinformation, disinformation, then I will now say all. No. Majority of the videos circulated in this part of the world about Burkina Faso leaders are deepfakes or they are entirely fake. They will say he did this, he did that, which is really, you will just hear him speaking Queen's English. I don't know when Burkina Faso become a Commonwealth country that he can speak that much Queen's English like some of us. I don't think, I'm not saying that maybe he cannot speak English, even if he can, but that Queen's English, I don't think so. I don't think so. And it has been verified that all those things are defects and here I come with the reason for all those ones. The reason for all those deepfakes videos about that is this targeting Nigeria. I have checked number of the videos. If they want to target Nigeria, they will put the hashtag Nigeria. You will see under the hashtag Nigeria. And the person speaking, they are using non-Nigerians. Now, they are using more of non-Nigerians to speak English, to do something that they will tag Nigeria. If they are targeting Ghana, they will write. If they are targeting all, they will just put the hashtag this country, this country. This is how they have been doing. The target for Nigeria is, they will say he did this. So if you go to the comment, you see Nigerians abusing their leaders. Now, gradually, means Nigerians are having all the trust is eroding. Because they are saying that this man is a military ruler, he just take over, he's doing this well, he's doing that well. Meanwhile, our leaders are not doing so. What is the aim? The aim is to be pro-military rule. That is the target. And Ghana, and they are targeting Ivory Coast. And beating Ivory Coast, honestly, personally, because of the coming election. Right now, I've been monitoring the thing. They are targeting them consistently. Consistently, the target, FIMI target now is Ivory Coast. More serious than even Nigeria because of the election. They are using the gaps. They are doing all this to actually support. And a lot of people will ask me, who are those that are doing this to us in Africa? Or generally, the whole world, every country is facing this kind of thing, but some countries have the resources, they have the people that are trying to combat this, apart from the independent journalists like myself that are fact-checking and doing all the media literacy. They also have institutions doing that. Thank you. So so the people doing that mostly are in part of Africa, they are China, based on the investigation by Dubawa, Nigeria, a fact-checking platform in Nigeria, the ES and the US, different fact-checking and media platforms. That is China, that is Russia, that is UAE, United Arab Emirates, in part of Africa. But in West Africa and the Sahel, it is Russia that is more pronounced in terms of this FIMI issue. Because in 2023, the report released in 2024, Russia have about 40% of targeting FIMI to West Africa and Sahel. When you calculate all the FIMI targets in Africa, 40% is from Russia. So these are things. China is doing its own part of Africa. UAE is doing it mostly in Sudan and some other countries. I hope Nigeria will take note because of the things that are happening. Then let me mention that the female actors or the information actors are now focusing really well in local languages. In northern Nigeria, we are facing that in Hausa. The IG representative mentioned some of it is filming. Those things you mentioned that happen in other countries, it is filming. And the CDS representative mentioned something about the security. It's actually the target is Nigeria, and it's coming from outside. Then quickly, they are just giving me this thing. I think the cost for this is to weaken our democracy. So that will be under military rule and also polarization. We have youth radicalization, like I mentioned earlier, to make the younger people, to instigate them against the government so that we can, Nigeria for example, will be like currently Sudan, I'm sorry, of what is happening in Sudan. If protest, it was from protest. So if it happened, then we can become like Sudan. Then no accountability for collaborators. Then one of the last things is how to fight back. The way to fight back about fake and disinformation is by telling the truth. Don't fight propaganda with propaganda. Fight it with what? With the truth, with the facts. Once you are able to do that, even if the person is able to bring his own manipulative this and that, when you give the facts, and people see the facts, you have given them new idea, you have given them a way to ponder, to think, and decide on their own. This is one of the best way to go. That is to amplify true voices, then support fact-checking communities, then strong grassroots journalism. Strong grassroots journalism. So media literacy is very important. Like what the Finland is doing. What the Finland is doing is very good. Then in Nigeria we have no national police strategy, as I know. To my knowledge, Nigeria has no national police strategy. And then we have a lot of weak platform oversight underfunded civil society. Sorry to say this, in Mali, the civil society were bought. In Mali, there are a lot of fake and bought Pan-Africans. This is the reason why you see them on TikTok and so many social media platforms. I'm closing with the fact that filming is not a threat to truth. It is a weapon against truth. So we need to just be careful. And it is a cancer if it is not detected and taken seriously at any stage. The consequences will be huge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bala. One thing I would say is clear in today's conversation is the urgent need to tackle misinformation. Well, it's not just a media issue, it's a national security, diplomatic, and even a development challenge. A very big thank you to Mr. Al-Hassan Bala for his work in combating misinformation in northern Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, are you here with me? Okay, so moving forward, we will be moving into the panel discussion. I am honored to moderate this high-level discussion at the Nigerian-African Diplomatic and Security International Conference. Well, our theme today addresses the increasing complex relationship between foreign policy, national security, and the information age, especially within the context of Nigeria's 40s foreign policy strategy. Well, that includes the democracy, development, demography, and the diaspora. As the world grapples with these strategic misconceptions, misinformation, and the unconventional security threats, our conversation today seeks to unpack how diplomacy, intelligence, media, academia, and national planning can harmonize and shape a more stable and secure future. Well, we are privileged to have a rich mix of experts on this panel discussion. We would have to invite the Director General of the National Intelligence join us at the high table. A round of applause for him, please. We would also ask Professor Gali, he is a renowned diplomat and scholar, to also join us on the high table. We're going to start this panel discussion with a question. My colleague Irene will be assisting. Thank you. We're going to start with a question to the EU Ambassador to Nigeria. Ambassador, I would have to ask, how does the EU view Nigeria's 4D foreign policy framework, particularly when it comes to the terms of shared security and democratic values?
Thank you very much. I will be short because I've already spoken at length, but democracy, in particular to support of democracy, we provide also technical assistance. And we think that strengthening democracy is a national security issue. So there are attacks against democracy worldwide. We've heard just now that there are in particular attacks in West Africa and in Nigeria. So it's very important, like the part of this program is also helping to fight disinformation in the context of elections. And we have a more general dialogue and partnership with questions of peace, security, and defense. But it is important to have a large understanding of the concept of national security. It's not only kinetic aspects. It's also a lot today about cyber security and the fight against the
Ambassador, before I let you go, there has been a lot of conversation about tackling disinformation in Nigeria. So I would have to ask, how can Nigeria and the EU collaborate more effectively in tackling cross-border disinformation campaigns? You mentioned elections, also particularly during elections and prior to regional unrest.
Well, we have a series of projects and programs also with the member states to promote media literacy, to help fact-check checkers, researchers, journalists. We have worked, for instance, with Ubawa, which is one of Nigeria's foremost fact-checking platform, and we are helping them to have instruments to detect debunk fake news, and we have also, as I mentioned in my speech, global platform helping also to denounce this kind of fake news. And it's very important for citizens also to have to be really aware of this risk, and every time that they see a news spreaded on social networks in particular, have the necessary tools and to ask themselves, is it a real news? And if I have a doubt, where can I check? What is the source? And who can give me security that this is not a fake news? And that's where regular media, traditional media, have a key role to play. And I think, in fact, in this world, somehow it's a good news for traditional media because they are, of course, to help make the difference between the real news and fake news. But also all these fact-checking platforms are essential to debunk all these disinformation.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much, sir. Now we'll move our next question to the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency. Sir, intelligence is a critical pillar in both foreign policy formulation and national security. Well, I would ask, so we'll move away from the Director General of the NIA. We'll move over to Professor Gali. Thank you, sir. So, Professor, we'll turn to you now for an intellectual and policy contextual perspective. I'll have to ask, from a scholarly lens, how well does Nigeria's foreign policy strategy align with global security and soft power threats?
All right, thank you so much, moderator. The 4D strategy, you know, as a national as well as a foreign policy posture, looking at development, democracy, diaspora, especially these three most significant aspects and pillars of this particular policy. The first thing that you have to actually advance as an entity, as a nation, is first the people. Demography, looking at the diverse, vociferous symbols of Nigeria, you have to really strengthen this particular population. That is why most advanced societies have been advancing this particular mantra that the people first. So if you actually invest in the people, that will actually create national and domestic harmony, thereby creating a kind of a national or domestic sustainability as well as stability. But whenever the population, the demography has actually developed a sense of resentment, then you're going to have instability. You begin to have rebellion, insurgency, and all sorts of things. So the foundation of national development, which is also in tandem with its foreign policy posture, is first of all the development and advancement of the demography. Strengthen them educationally, skills, as well as heavily invest in human development. I was happy, I think he has left, when he was saying that you first of all advance the pen. When you advance the pen, it will be sharper than the sword. So you now advance the people. It is the people who will in turn advance the country and the nation. So human development is vital, and human development will now cut across the national, the domestic, as well as the international level, which will also affect the diaspora. So once we have an advanced population, then they will, tomorrow be part of the diaspora population. Then apart from this democracy, you have to actually respect human rights. Human rights, equality among the people. If people's rights have been abused and breached against, then definitely that particular feeling of injustice will now make the people to actually arise against the government, and they will resort into a kind of jungle justice in order to take vengeance even against the state, not even against other institutions of the state. So this is actually in tandem with the United Nations Sustainable Development. Why? Because you are actually advancing democracy, human rights. You are on the other hand advancing and developing demography, which is the population. Then that will result in development, by extension and in the long run.
Okay, so Prof, what role would you say academic institutions should play in shaping or critiquing diplomatic strategies in this age of information?
Well, the intellectual and academic environment has an obligation, and that obligation is to invest heavily in research, because there cannot be development without research. The advanced societies have been able to advance because of research and development. If you know, it is usually said you know, and it will actually assuage all the difficulties in finding development paths. So the academic environment has this particular obligation to carry out research, and the government also has an obligation in supporting the academic environment in funding research. I once received a student from University of London who came all the way from UK to Nigeria, West Africa, in order to research on ECO's intervention to Liberia, just that. And when she spoke, she told me about the funding, the ambience of the funding she received from UK. So this is how the intellectual and academic environment should actually flourish. Through funding, because you need to go to the field sometimes to investigate what happened, what are the causational factors to conflict, as well as social disorder. Then you now come back after gathering data and make recommendations to that particular effect. So the academic environment, if you go to the People's Republic of China, for example, there is what we call Chinese Academy of Social Science. This Chinese Academy of Social Science is a think tank, which the Chinese government even is hinged on in order for policy recommendations. Even the Belt and Road Initiative, which we usually hear about, is a result of the Chinese Academy of Social Science. So in Africa, For example, in Nigeria, we need to strengthen, our educational institutions that are actually research-based in order to find solutions to our societal problems, give recommendations for foreign policy posture, as well as foreign policies formulated for Nigeria and our countries to be great again, if I may paraphrase Donald Trump.
Well said, Prof. Thank you so much for your contribution. And now to Al-Hassan Bala. Al-Hassan, your work addresses the intersection of media, language, and disinformation, and particularly among grassroots communities. So now I have to ask, how vulnerable are language-based communities, now like the Hausa-speaking population which you work with, to disinformation, and how can fast-checking platforms bridge this gap?
Thank you very much, and this brings me to the fact that local language is as important as also any other foreign language, mostly in Africa. In fact, some extent I can say it's even more important when it comes to the issue of combating disinformation, misinformation, and now feeding. Because the people that are getting the information may not likely be the people that speak the English or speak French or Portuguese, for example, since we are in West Africa, the Cape Verde. So the local languages has a lot because people listen, people hear without verifying that information. They may not really have that knowledge to fact check or to verify the information, and they believe it because of the lack of media literacy. So for example now, the propaganda by Niger Republic President against Nigeria, for example, I'm not even going to the issue of France. Let me just stop on Nigeria. For example, he is using Hausa language to make the propaganda without any evidence, without any fact. But because of the language he is using, people having sympathy for him, people believe it, but later people will realize that this thing is not true while the damage has been done. So particularly platform like Al-Qalanji is key to combat this type of disinformation in local languages. That's what I believe.
Okay, thank you so much, Hassan, and thank you for the important overview. And now to the CEO of the Chartered Institute of Project Managers in Nigeria. Let's bring the strategic implementation to view where foreign policy intersects with national development planning. So now I have to ask, how can governance frameworks support the successful execution of Nigeria's 4D foreign policy priorities?
I think it's sort of an area of what I've mentioned before. Human capital development. Human capital development. So whatever it is this nation wants to do, whatever you're planning to do within the country or with our foreign partners, I believe that there is a lot of work to do to educate Nigerians, to upskill Nigerians, and to get to an international level where we begin to add that sort of value to whatever it is we're doing as a nation. Okay, so there are standards, all right, for delivering projects. There are standards for any activity at all in this world, and it is human beings that operate in that level. So I think there needs to be a lot of investment, all right, in the human capital of this country. That's the only way we can stand toe to toe with our international friends to be able to deliver any sort of initiative that comes to mind. More investment is good to human capital development.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And now to the Chief of Defense Staff, sir. How is the military adopting its defense posture to reflect the evolving threats posed not only by traditional combatants, but also disinformation campaigns and strategic misconceptions that can undermine national unity and foreign relations?
Thank you very much for this question. What we call human intelligence. No matter how strong your military is, if you don't have the support of the public, in the areas of getting intelligence information, there's no much you can
and they libel us. So you have to have information, credible information about the because of crime, for example, for us to be able to fight it.
Thank you very much, sir. We move now to the police. Sorry, we're taking all security agencies. So please, sir, at the diplomatic level, how is Nigerian police addressing the consequences of fake news and online misinformation, especially during elections, protests, or communal tensions?
Well, the Nigerian police force has been partnering with the media, and that is why we have the Police Public Relations Committee, which most media houses are part of the committee. And with the assistance of the media, certain information that will be at the detriment of the country, maybe uniting and instigating crisis within the country. We are using the media to mitigate such crisis from time to time, and that is why it's very important for the IG always to organize, is always organizing media press briefing to update the people in this country about the effort of the police, living the mood, some of the security challenges across the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, at this moment in our discussions, we'd like to turn the microphone over to the diplomatic community. We'd like to hear from you. How has your experience been so far in combating misinformation, especially when carrying out your line of duty? We'd really appreciate to hear from members of the audience so we can more enrich our conversation. Thank you very much. Is there anyone who would love to contribute to the conversation? How misinformation, how you have been able to tackle misinformation in your line of duty? Thank you very much, sir. Would appreciate if you could tell us your name and your designation, and please go ahead with your answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Larmin Silva. I'm the ambassador of it's not a question, it's only comments that I want to share. Not about disinformation or misinformation, about information. But information when it is focused in bad things, only bad information. Because I, as a diplomat, have served in many countries around the world, Latin America, Europe, and Africa, and I received during this time a lot of guests in my house. But since I'm in Nigeria, 3 years and 7 months, I didn't receive any guests. Why? When I invited them, they said, no, Nigeria, I'm not going to receive them. Why? Because you have a lot of bad information of this country. We know that Nigeria have some issues about security, issues, but you have it in every country around the world. But what we see is that information is networking somewhere in the world is only bad information, not good information. When I said them, no, come to Nigeria because Nigeria is a very good country, it's a nice country, Abuja is a very good city. So they say, no, what we see here is not what you are saying to us. So it's not misinformation or disinformation, is only somewhere. So this comment, I want to put it and then Thank you very much.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Round of applause for him. Do we have another person? Okay.
Thank you very much for allowing this little interaction. Today takes a matter of Belgium here in Nigeria. And I first of all would like to add a word of praise, just like my other colleague from Cabo Verde, to Mr. Al-Hassan Bala, who is fast becoming my intellectual hero of the day, for bringing in so much poignant, correct information through figures that I hadn't heard before, but also for speaking a few of these obvious truths to this august audience. I think we really like you for that and for all that you contributed here this morning to the discussion. Now, as far as our own experience at the Embassy of Belgium is concerned here in Nigeria, let me call it like that. We've not been hindered in a systematic way by disinformation or misinformation, thank God. But when it occurs, I think it's important to react immediately. And in my experience so far, it means that things can be corrected, even if there cannot be excluded that sometimes some malignant actors are at work, that there is some intentional use and manipulation of information going on. When you work through structures that can also reprimand people then afterwards for undue misrepresentation of information, of quotes, or even things that were just totally made up and based on no statement at all, then it can still work. And another element I would bring in is that, yes, misinformation, it doesn't always have to be in a regional context either. I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that media in Nigeria can also be beholden to certain political strongmen's interests, to certain corporate interests, and that also may be a source of misreconstruction of information, and that also plays out. But again, so far my experiences have been rather positive in how redress can happen afterwards. And perhaps one last element, that is that as a diplomat you come into a new environment, you always have to adapt a little bit to circumstances. For instance, what comes to mind is more than at home in Nigeria and more than in other places in the world perhaps, I sometimes feel the need to make it clear from the outset when you receive people for a courtesy call that a courtesy call is not an interview. It might be a very fundamental element, but it is not apparently given with all of your interlocutors here. So that is also definitely has been a takeaway, a take home for me as an ambassador. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for him.
Thank you. I'm political counselor at the Embassy of France in Nigeria. I just wanted to make one maybe positive comment and question, which is I'm very impressed by the quality of the work that a lot of Nigerian journalists and fact-checkers do here in Nigeria to fight information. It's quite impressive. It's not something you see everywhere. When I see the reports that are written sometimes on some BME or the information attempts in Nigeria, they are comparable to the quality of what I see in France or in the EU. The question is, how do we bridge the gap between this very good work, this high-quality work, and the public, and the general public? Something needs to be done to make all these resources that are the product of the great work of the Nigerian actors, how do we make it accessible to the general public? Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for him. Thank you. So any other appreciate? Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Michał Cygan, I'm ambassador designate of Poland, and I would like to add the words of recognition for your outstanding work on combating disinformation. I strongly believe that democratic values are under attack, and we see it in organized organized form, as we call it, as scheme, and we see it also as a result of certain tendencies, sometimes lack of access to information, and sometimes a lack of awareness on the part of the youth that they are being targeted. So I see this, and I would very much like to applaud all these that address these issues at the institutional level, but also at the societal level, like Mr. Al-Hassan, to divide this interventions into two areas. One that would be to identify the actors, the malign actors that spread lies or create them or add them, multiply them, because there are ways of adding strength to these voices, adding thousands of supporters, followers, which are very often fake. And the other, even more important area is to strengthen the resilience of the people, of the minds, that they do the fact checking, that they learn at the school level, at the university level, through trainings to journalists, what are the ways to prevent the spread of misinformation or just lies, and how to verify them, how to distinguish the credible media and credible sources of information from the ones that do not deserve to be called out.
Thank you, sir. So we understand we have people who would love to ask questions on this particular discourse. It's interesting to see how this conversation is turning into a shared interest for everyone, both the diplomatic community and the media. Please your name and your question, and of course who is targeted at.
I'm Kabir Abdul. Just want to add to what Alasan said.
Use the microphone. Put it on.
I just want to add to what Alasan said about grassroots, which is the grassroots, which you made mention of going as low. From what he said, from his discussion as regards the agents and all, they have to deliberate about their information, about disseminating their whatever institution they want to disseminate. So what we can do as people and as journalists is to go low. The government, journalists, we are the voice of the people, right? And the government has all the institutions at hand. Why not deploy these people, these institutions, and as journalists to counter those information and further push facts and truthful information to the general public? That's what I think we can do in that regard, targeting or let me say fighting enemy. We can go as lower as people. They are deliberate about their actions. They employ us of hands to pass their information. We can do the same. We can do better than what they are doing. That's why
Thank you very much. A round of applause for him. Thank you for joining, lending your voice to the conversation.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Bob. I come from the African Center for Social Studies. I want to thank the roundtable for a very intellectual and going to this conversation. And as alluded to by the diplomats, I think what they have done is to tell us how misinformation and all that is affecting us. And for me, I'm trying to look at the impact. I'm not asking a question, I'm just trying to make a contribution. How can it impact our economy? Of course, you know Nigeria is presently driving through the 1 trillion naira economy, and it becomes very, very important that we look at diplomacy, intelligence, and media, how it can impact the economy. And I think that is what the conversation has done here today. I will want to add one thing. Can we look at the youth demographic? Can we turn that energy into this, into combating or as one of the frameworks for implementing this 4D diplomacy that we are saying? I think it will be very important because the youth in Nigeria is about the third largest globally today, and that demographic is huge. It can do a lot for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution. To round of applause for him. One more comment and we'll be back to the high table so we can end this very informative session. It's important. It's interesting because when we talk about these things, it seems like it's just mere words. But when you see the damage that has been done by misinformation, especially in northern Nigeria, it can really go deep. So it's important we have these conversations and also actualize them to make sure this does not go ahead.
Good afternoon, and I think I should just start on the existing protocol. My name is Patricia Isenzuba. I'm a diplomatic correspondent with NTA. While Mr. Al-Hassan was talking, I jotted down something, but I never knew we were going to be told to say something. Mine is kind of a question and what can be done, but I want to direct this to our chairman for Daipen. Disinformation, and so many things, fake news and so on, comes up for us, and it's becoming like a canker worm, and it's going to destroy, if not, it's destroying a lot of things that we, the media, are doing. So I was of the opinion that will it be out of place if we, as a body that are in charge of the journalists in the diplomatic corps, can reach out, and we have our various offices down even in the local, which is in Nigeria, have a way of making every fake bringing report that may be damaging to the integrity of individuals, institutions, or even the government itself to book. And can it be maybe where we would have a kind of maybe some punishment? Because when a child does a thing and you leave it, he goes today, tomorrow he will do it again. So, but let there be a body, maybe we take permission from the government, we keep track of every mistake, misinformation, so that we will be able to handle it in our own capacity with the backing of the government. Because I traveled, I've been somewhere for over 5 months. Honestly, I've not seen where people give room. In fact, the government is in charge of many of the reports that go out. So why should Nigeria, a giant of Africa, a country that has worked all these years for many, many small nations, and they are now coming and we're allowing them to infiltrate and give us reasons why we are not doing what we're doing. So DICA has the power, has the right to work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and see how we can bring them to book. And when we start giving examples, showing people what they do and is still damaging, then possibly we can handle this matter of fake news and other misinformation. Thank you.
All right, let me say something very briefly, Your Excellencies. DICAN, as a body, we have what we call the Ethics and Disciplinary Committee. It is in the Constitution. Once a member defaults, we sanction such a member appropriately. And we are also working towards driving it to state levels, to media houses. We will take the campaign and the advocacy there, and we need your support too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a misreporting about a diplomat here, which I'm not going to mention the embassy. When he raised his concern, we immediately took action in less than 3 minutes. All the reports were dropped. Every report was dropped. So, it is what we are doing, and we will continue to do it. We have lots of programs to work with the embassies, with relevant government agencies, and parastatals for us to get this thing done. Because we, as the Diplomatic Correspondents Association of Nigeria, we are still members of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. So, we will also work under the law that governs the NUG, and we will collaborate with all relevant agencies to ensure that things are done right. So, in as much as I'm the chairman, I'm not always afraid. If it means us walking into the fire and coming out, if you can go in there, I can follow you into that fire and come out. So we'll keep on working to ensure that we have a safe and better diplomatic community. Because it's a very sensitive environment. If you don't know what you report, you may lead to a government declaring an ambassador as a personal non-grata. So we won't support that. We'll lift our stake in as much as we like using carrot stick, we also lift our stick when it is necessary. So don't worry, let your mind be at rest. We are at work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for the Darkan chair. We really appreciate you. But before we go ahead, Mr. Al-Hassan Bala wants to give a quick remark on.
Thank you very much, Patricia, about what you mentioned. Yeah, some countries regulate their media well, but I think that is against a little bit when we talk about freedom of speech, some extent, and human rights, some extent. Let me give instances of the European Union, for example. The EU have DSA, that is Digital Service Act. That DSA is to protect the people while trying to also protect their rights. For example, that DSA has already criminalized or put measures to make sure that anything that will affect their people in EU countries have been monitored, taken down, but they also use the issue very well in terms of the freedom of speech and their rights. This is why there is also the EU Artificial AI Act, EU AI Act. I went through it yesterday. So while they are trying to monitor everything, they are also protecting the right of people. So saying the government should now be in control of everything, I mean, we are now, is it an authoritarian country or what? So I think the only measures is for the representative of government, for example, the CDS representative, the IG, should approach the government institutions responsible for this, so that they can provide this type of act, the Digital Service Act, that can protect the people from getting all this harmful information, false information that can, by extension, affect the generality of Nigerians and even the people in West Africa and globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for him. And now to Right Honourable Didi Edumelu. Sir, what role would you say the National Assembly can play in institutionalizing safeguards against disinformation that can ensure better coordination between diplomacy, intelligence, and the media? And this is all in protecting Nigeria's national interests.
Okay, thank you very much for remembering me. What I was left behind. You know, first of all, even National Assembly, before I even answer that question, let me tell you what we go through. National Assembly is the most abused and the most misrepresented, even in Nigeria. Most times, you see us, we remove our plate numbers because we don't want to be mobbed. Why? Because there is this misinformation about the National Assembly. You know, you earn 100,000 naira for instance, and somebody goes to say you're owing me 2 million. So you go back to your constituency, they're expecting you to showcase that 2 million on them. So in order to manage yourself, you find out that there's a high turnover every time there's an election. Why? Because the people out there are expecting you to do what people have reported wrongly that you are earning. And in truth, you don't have it. So coming back to what can they do? They have put so many laws in place. I'm sorry I can't be able to pick them out. But I think the National Orientation Agency has a lot of work to do. You know, like Hassan also rightly said, you can't force the manner of which to communicate on people. Because even our constitution provides for freedom of association, speech, except you have to go under observation to see that you remove those provisions that gives people over power to say whatever they want to say. My brother Mbadiwe was, you know, made an allusion to the fact that even when he was assuming his position and a lot of things were written. And I told him, I said, my brother, don't cry, because for as long as you remain in a strategic place, there will always be a negative write-up against you. What you do, you block your ears. But it's not funny. Let me give you an example. In 2009, I led a probe, power probe, to investigate the power sector. And in our findings, we found out that $16 billion were actually invested in the power sector without 1 kilowatt of electricity being connected to national grid. When the report was to be laid, a lot of things happened. People were misinformed, and in the end, a lot of tribalism came in because of misinformation. There were zonal meetings. This one is my brother. They are about to kill him through this report. Don't let it see the light of the day. Whereas that was not the intention. The intention was, look, money was brought out to provide electricity. Today in Nigeria, we don't have electricity. And that was what that report was meant to solve. Go after those areas where there were mismanagement and see what can be done to either recover the funds and rechannel the funds. But misinformation led to us not getting to the promised land as it relates to that report. And today we don't have electricity. Imagine Nigeria, up to this moment, we're still managing 4,000 megawatts of electricity. Whereas the intention of Obasanjo's government then was to have more than 12,000 megawatts of electricity. For instance, Mambila Plateau was meant to generate up to 6,000 megawatts. I visited them. But misinformation again led to destroying those things. I can talk about health sector. Also in the health sector, when I took over, that was in 2011 to 2015, I had called to also probe the sector because monies were provided to rehabilitate the existing hospitals. And instead of them procuring the way to make procurement, and there was a company that, of course, placed itself that they are manufacturers from Austria. I went to Austria myself. I got there, it was more like a warehouse. They don't manufacture anything. They procure things and put them there, come to Nigeria, bid for contract to supply those medical equipment. And when we came back, when we put the report in place, because some people had some of my colleagues to have an eye on how the report was going to be and it did not favor them, they brought out a report to say that, oh, we're after Obasanjo's daughter. Maybe you remember her, who was a senator then. And that was how that report was killed. If you go to most of those hospitals, the equipment that they brought were obsolete, including Abuja Teaching Hospital. So, it is a problem. The problem is in us. How do we take charge and make sure that we don't think about where we come from, but think about how we can ensure that things work for the country. Even if you put the law in place, there will see some people that will circumvent the law. They will find a way to manipulate it. And if you pick those people who have offended the law, you see people from their area coming to tell you that is it because it's from Southeast or it's from North Central, is that why you are doing that? The same thing is happening even if police pick somebody who has committed crime, rightly or wrongly, sorry, and is put in detention. The first thing that will happen is the traditional chief of that community will call somebody in Abuja who is in higher authority to say, how can you be there? You have somebody from your place is being locked up. Because they are telling him that it's because they misinformed the traditional ruler, that it's because the person comes from that place. That's why they are trying to do that. Not saying the truth about what is going on. Coming back to the media need to do more. Apart from us putting the law in place, the media need to do more. It's a course where they will just write a report, give media guys 20,000. They don't cross-check, they will publish. That was there, but it happened. It happened. Let me give you an example. We went to Ikoto Abashi to inspect our station. Now our vehicle got spoiled somewhere. We couldn't get there. So I walked down to that substation. And there I saw the man who was given the contract to build the substation. And the man was telling the person who was offloading the generator to be fast, that wicked man is coming. Because if he comes, probably will be put to jail. Now, I caught him red-handed. He didn't know I was the chairman of the group. When they now came, everybody now walked up to me. My colleagues walked up to me and said, chairman. And in fact, the man almost fainted. By the time I brought the report, and I stated exactly what happened, because the man is from our Bible state, all my colleagues from our Bible state were asked to make sure that report, that clause is killed because the Melu wants to harm their brother. And the media took it, even the media men who followed us to that on-the-spot assessment. So there's a lot of law. It's not about even National Assembly itself. It's about the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for Right Honorable. We have a comment from Professor Gali before we end this session.
All right, thank you. Two things are involved in my comment. One is that both diplomacy and the media can actually strengthen national and international stability. And the two at the same time, they will actually merge such stability either at domestic level or at international level. I give you some multilateral diplomatic engagement example. When the First World War ended, we had the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, which resulted in the production of the Versailles Treaty. It was meant to punish those who actually triggered the First World War, which literally and popularly known as the Great War. But then, Germany ended up being punished. And the punishment reparation on Germany was part of the remote causational factors that led to the outbreak of the Second World War. So this is diplomacy. But look at the League of Nations, for example. The League of Nations was meant not to have the occurrence of war, especially the Great War, diplomatic engagement. The Washington Naval Conference, 1921, which called for disarmament, among states. So these are all good diplomatic engagement. So coming down to the media, misperceptions and misconception of news and events that produce a wrongful media reportage due to misconception, misperception, misunderstanding, and ignorance. That calls for what? Constant training and perpetual training, just like what a brother just said earlier. But apart from that, if the journalist is well informed and aware, and he's poor, because the media houses underpay the journalists. So therefore, if the journalists are being underpaid and they have brown envelope, they could actually misinform and they could actually spread disinformation. It's just like a teacher, you underpay a cheap teacher, then you are paving ways and wrongs for corruption. Because the teacher might be corrupt because he's not getting what he's supposed to get. So also applicable to journalists. If journalists are not well paid, are not duly paid, then the issue of poverty will persist. And it's one of the triggers of misinformation and disinformation. Why? Because the journalists will continue to receive money from the client and spread any form of information, that the client so wish to be disseminated. So these are some of the areas, but we should also look at the positive. The media is important and significant, especially in creating dialogue, and dialogue for peace to exist. They help in peace building. They also facilitate and influence, public opinion to a better society as well as international society. And that is why you see If you are asked today, how many people died in Israel? Nobody will tell you because the media was not even allowed to capture it. Not even as Jazeera or BBC will tell you that as a result of Iranian bombardment of Israel, this is the social number of casualties. So sometimes the media, some state, instrumentalized media for the protection of the state and for stability to be ensured within the domestic market as well as in the world state. Go ahead, thank you.
We appreciate you, Professor Gali. A round of applause for him. One last comment on this round, and we can finally end this panel discussion. It's been an interesting conversation on combating misinformation in Nigeria. Please, go ahead.
Relate back to what the ambassador of Cape Verde said about him inviting some of his friends and they refused to come because of a perceived information about security in Nigeria. Meanwhile, in other countries where it's been posted to Voicetv and all that. I think we also have to find a way to get to the diaspora in terms of sensitizing most young people who are now in the diaspora. We are in the period of the Japa syndrome. Nigerians are traveling out every day, both young and old. No thanks to the unfavorable economic conditions. So we have to, Dakar has to find a way with the diplomatic community to reach out to the people in diaspora, even those at home, do a lot of sensitization. Because I have a friend who's in Nigeria, he's married to a Polish lady, and he wanted to come with the wife home, and he said the wife has been scared because she's been reading a lot of negative stories. And I said, some of these things you are reading are not true. We are here now, what is going on? But that she's already having that fear. He too, he's a bit, he said, okay, I don't mind me coming alone, but my wife and my son, I think I'm a bit scared. So we have to find a way to sensitize, particularly the young ones, so that those in the diaspora, even those at home, so that because it is we here and those in the diaspora that will do the major marketing for Nigeria. We either market or demarket our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. A round of applause for him. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you for staying through to this time, to the end of this panel discussion. Your Excellency, Security Chiefs, members of the Diplomatic Corps, tackling misinformation, security volatility, and propaganda requires shared intelligence, credible media, and strategic diplomacy, as we have heard today. And together, we can move forward in moving forward and executing our foreign policy. I appreciate you. My name is Anna Marcus, and this is the end of our 10th discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. In fact, I'm very, very happy today working with two beautiful ladies. I was not expecting less at all. All of you have performed excellently well. So I want to join out to appreciate members of the high table, all contributors, the contributions during the panel discussion were very incisive. This conference ordinarily is supposed to be like a 2-day event because tackling misconceptions, fake news, misrepresentation of facts is really not easy. As spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I know what I'm passing through. In fact, 2 days ago, a journalist called and asked that I've just been informed that our ambassador from UAE has been recalled. I said, when was that one appointed? You are supposed to know when ambassadors were appointed. I think for the past 2 years, our president has not appointed new ambassadors, so you have to project your fact. And what would most times suffer if the first person that carried the news, most times are unknown persons, but if a credible media house share that particular information, then it becomes a source of concern because people will be making reference to that particular person that have reposted what the first misinformer has circulated or put out from this. So thank you very much for your contribution. So we want to go into presentation of awards, but before doing that, may I respectfully invite all members of the high table for us to please have a group photograph with the chairman of DICAM, and after that we'll have a photograph with diplomats here in the hall, and then the students that are official leaders have asked for them to have the photograph with the diplomat for those of them that want to represent Nigeria in 30, 40 years time. So please, members of the high table, have been indulgent, so please let's stand up. We'll arrange the tables to have a good view here, to have a good photograph with the president of the DICAM.
Before Vicky. Vicky.